Support for this podcast comes from Staples. Staples is the leading provider in office supplies, offering a vast selection of products and services. Over the last 2 years, Staples has also become one of America's largest janitorial suppliers as well. From your everyday business essentials to your office furniture, printing, facilities, and break room, Staples can do it all. Staples offers benefits to help create efficiencies in procurement and consolidate vendors to streamline internal processes. Visit www.staplesadvantage.com to learn more. And Dynamic. Since 1982, Dynamic Air Quality Solutions has been the leader in designing, manufacturing, and distributing IAQ products to the commercial and residential markets through authorized HVAC contractors. Our products are based on science and logic. We provide ongoing world-class technical and communication training for your entire team. They'll learn to understand and believe in the products and to communicate IAQ challenges and solutions in layman's terms on every call. Our training is educational, fun, and entertaining. You'll be assigned a world-class IAQ trainer and territory manager for technical support and to plan your training on an ongoing basis. Partner with us and enjoy the benefits of the science of clean air. For more information, visit worldclassiaq.com.
Welcome to The Successful Contractor, powered by CertainPath, formerly Success Group International, a show for residential contractors about residential contractors. We chronicle business journeys, share insights, and celebrate successes in this wonderful industry. I'm your host, Bob Houchin. As a reminder, all episodes of The Successful Contractor are available on YouTube, as well as your podcast player of choice. And for more information on how CertainPath can put your contracting company on a certain path to success, visit our website, www.mycertainpath.com, or give us a call at 866-299-8505. I'm excited to bring to you an interview with Steve Mores and Michelle Hogan of Dynamic Indoor Air Quality Solutions. Dynamic has been a longtime partner with CertainPath. They offer incredible air quality products that truly benefit homeowners' health as well as the longevity of their equipment. But their products, when combined with a dynamic system, can also add, even with only 4 service trucks, over $1 million in sales every year at an incredible 65% gross margin. No extra calls, no extra marketing. They can show you how to make $1 million extra bucks a year. We go over the dynamic products and processes in this interview, even sharing some insights that your team can use today to sell more IAQ. By the way, if your salespeople are the only ones selling IAQ, not your service techs, you absolutely want to be watching or listening to this. So without further ado, here's Steve Mores and Michelle Hogan of Dynamic Indoor Air Quality Solutions. I hope you enjoy our conversation and take away another 2. Steve, Michelle, thank you so much for joining me today. We've known each other a long time, but for those who don't have the honor of calling you friends and are listening or viewing, could you each of you share your names, where you work, and what your positions are?
Absolutely, Bob. Thank you so much. My name is Michelle Hogan. I have been in the trades for 24 years. I started out my first 10 in commercial and new construction, and the last 14 have been in residential. Both Steve, myself, and Bob all worked at Clockwork Home Services together for many years.
That's right.
So I have been working with several of your CertainPath members for in the upwards of 15 plus years, Bob. And we love it, and we just want more of them. So take it away, Steve.
I like the pitch.
Thanks again for having us, Bob. Yeah, this is going to be fun. Just a little bit of background on me. My name's Steve Morris. I'm president of the residential division for Dynamic Air Quality Solutions. And I've been in the industry since, I think, before Michelle was born. 1990s when I got going in indoor air quality. Before it was kind of cool to get into it. And in 1992, I was on the first design team that designed some of the first UV lights for residential applications. And fast forward to today, I've been with Dynamic now for 13 years, and we're just having a blast doing what we do. We do, as you'll find throughout the podcast, we do a lot of training with your members currently, and looking forward to meeting others in the future.
Yep, you guys have helped a lot of SGI, CertainPath, Success Group, all sort. I mean, the names have changed, but you guys have always been there, and have helped a lot of people. Yeah, today, obviously, we're here to talk about indoor air quality, or IAQ, and And before I start asking you guys a bunch of questions, I wanted to share some numbers with those viewing and listening. And, Steve and I, we'll show you behind the scenes, those people, again, watching and viewing. He and I met, I guess, a couple weeks ago to go through some stuff and just make sure we get some good content across. And I just was kind of floored by the numbers that are there with IAQ. In particular, Steven mentioned that the gross margin IAQ is 65%. And because this is a public podcast, I'm not going to share what our HVAC CertainPath model is, but 65% is better than what we recommend you should at least get in replacement and service. So if you're a small operation, say you're just running 4 trucks, each truck runs approximately 4 calls a day over 250 working days. With the products and support that Steve, Michelle, and their team provides, there's no reason why that 4-truck company cannot sell over $1 million in IAQ alone. So $225,000 revenue a truck. And if you do the math, which I had to do beforehand because I'm not good at math, a 65% gross margin, that's over $500,000 in gross margin dollars in that company's pocket. And for the techs, if structured properly, it's over $30,000 in additional compensation in their pockets for each tech, not like you're splitting it up amongst the 4 guys. So we're going to talk about those numbers a lot more later on, but I wanted to get that up front early on for people, so they definitely want to stay tuned for the rest of this. I know, again, one of our biggest cheerleaders I wanted to bring up was Jimmy Dale, part owner of CertainPath, was a member a long time before that, president of Baker Brothers. I think they're knocking on $100 million in sales. He every time I talk to him, he mentions you guys. I think the first year you worked with their team, they went from $1 million in IAQ sales to $3 million. So he's just over the moon excited about what you do. So, hey, IAQ, no brainer, right, guys? So, but not everyone does it appropriately, right? So they're missing out on this opportunity. What do you guys? What have you seen in dealing with contractors over the years with IAQ?
Bob, we talk as a team all the time that this should be a no-brainer, especially after COVID. But even prior to COVID, I mean, here again, I've been doing this since 1990 and talking to technicians and owners and comfort advisors all the way across the board about, implementing this either into their sales or service process and maintenance agreements as well, and just kind of building the whole culture. So saying a no-brainer is probably true, except you have to have a brain to make it work, so and I'm not saying that guys that aren't into it aren't smart. There's a lot of people out there, contractors out there, a lot smarter than I am, but they have a lot of things to be concerned about. Every day they open up their computer and tech called in sick, somebody got in an accident, so they're worried about EBITDA. There's things that are happening throughout the day that, oh my gosh, that's right, we got to talk about indoor air quality. So in order to make it a no-brainer, you have to have a process and a system put together. And it's difficult to do if you got a bunch of other things to do, but that's what we're experts at. That's all we do. So we go direct to contractors and we have training programs for them. And we also, it's not only training on the technology, but it's at the end of the day, how do you get the technician happily involved in talking about indoor air quality? And what we find is, we'll ask this, if I had 100 techs in front of me right now, how many of you guys joined this company to become a sales guy? Maybe one hand will come up, probably not. So when we train, we don't really train sales as much as we do doing the right thing for the homeowner and keeping the dirt, dust, and debris off the system. That's just the right thing to do. But our number one problem with technicians is we tell them it's not the money. It's not your money. Technicians, they're really good financial advisors. They think it's their money. They're going to tell the homeowner how to spend their money. And what they don't realize is they really can't empathize with a homeowner because they would never pay retail for the stuff that they're talking to them about. If they had something wrong with their furnace and air conditioning system, they wouldn't call a company in. They'd fix it themselves. They would buy the contactor for compressor for a certain price. So they really can't empathize with a homeowner why the indoor air quality product or package costs $1,800 or whatever the number is. So we got to get them beyond that, and then we teach them how the dirt, dust, and debris affects not only the system but someone's health, and then we move on from there.
Very good. You mentioned culture, and it's all these things that you touched on, it builds this IAQ culture. But you kind of boil it down into three things, right? The product, process, practice. You'd mentioned that to me earlier. Can you kind of, one of you, speak to what that means specifically with a little more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bob. So what we do is we do an onboarding process, right? So we do educate usually the owner, general manager, any decision makers of the company, right? We
Sure.
talk about the product, we talk about our training, right? Because the product has to be great, but then we talk about our training to make it a culture. To Steve's point, we train everyone, Bob. It's awesome. We train the techs, we train the installers, we train the salespeople, we train the office staff. We train absolutely everybody except for that person that does all of the books within their company and never touches the phone.
Right.
Okay, but if they touch the phone at any point, we want to train them.
Sure. That's
Okay,
great.
so if they're talking to the homeowner, we need to educate them. So it's the old Lon Castle process, right? Bam 'em. You got to train them, you got to hold them accountable, and then you got to motivate them to continue to do it. And our training process is phenomenal. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but we train in 3 ways, and we're excited to explain that.
That's great. That's great. You know, of course, we can't talk about anything without IQ without getting into what your products are. So for those that may not understand all that you offer, can you kind of quickly outline what Dynamic can offer contractors?
Well, first of all, I want to address the 3 things you mentioned on the earlier question was a product, process, and practice, we call it.
Yeah.
So I'll address product now, and then Michelle and I will talk about the other 2, which is the process and how to get everybody involved, build that culture, and then the practice. But when it comes to product itself, we base everything on what we call science and logic. So what that means is scientifically the product has to work, and then logically it has to work and the application is designed for.
Right.
There's a ton of products out there now that work scientifically, and they can prove that, but they'll do a test 1 inch away from a petri dish, and it took 30 minutes to inactivate a microorganism. Well, we don't have 30 minutes.
No.
We got like 0.7 seconds.
Yeah.
It's going by very, very quickly.
Very nice demonstration. I
As
like
Michelle is
that, Michelle.
demonstrating. So, that virus that she's holding in her hand there doesn't stop in front of the lamp.
Right.
It goes by at 400 or 500 feet per minute. So, number 1, it has to work scientifically, and we prove that with lab testing. And not only lab testing in a small petri dish application or 4,000 square foot facility, we tested in actually a 20,000 square foot facility, which is our offices, which we have testing chambers in there. So we know exactly how the products scientifically work, and will it work logically in the application it's designed for. Because I got to tell you, especially since COVID, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there today. They're putting UV lights under vacuum cleaners. They got these little wands that you shake in the air. And I mean, if that really did what it says it does, you'd be burning your eyeballs and your skin with it,
Yeah.
And if you read the instructions, it says it has to be in contact with the microorganism for 10 minutes. So if you got a UV light underneath a vacuum cleaner, if it were a real one, number 1, it would fade the carpet. Secondly, it would take you 3 weeks to do your carpet. Because by the time you got to the other end, if you took 10 minutes on every inch, you have to come back at it. So yeah, scientifically it works, but it has to work physically in the application it's designed for.
For sure.
So with that said, all of our products are designed that way. And the cool thing about our company, Bob, we're the manufacturer. We can make anything we want. If someone comes out with a new bell and whistle, and it comes to us all the time. What about this? What about this PCO or this ionizer or this and that? If it works, we'll make it. If it's better than what we've got, we're not opposed to other technology that's out there today. But if it doesn't work in the application in our testing facilities and in home and our commercial, by the way, we got a huge commercial division. We do libraries and office buildings and airports and hospitals. So we take that commercial technology and address it to the residential market as well.
Yeah, and I do want to go through the product line, but just something you brought up a moment ago, though, after COVID, because I know you and I have talked at expos, and you were checking emails like, oh my God, there's another company. another class action lawsuit. I mean, it's like the Wild West, right? I mean, it's hard for
Yeah.
contractors to believe in somebody. It seems like.
That's a great point. See, before COVID, IAQ was under the radar.
Mm.
You see some stuff online, people buy HEPA filters for room applications, which is not a bad application. But our industry, it's way under the radar.
Right.
COVID brought it way above the radar because they started giving government money for COVID, for schools. You can open your school if you get the air cleaned right, so.
Sure.
A lot of these companies were jumping on board saying, well, let's hit that market, take this government money.
Sure.
And what they found out was 3 to 6 months after the product was installed, the maintenance guy would open up the air handler and said, this is dirtier than it's ever been.
Right.
And without getting into technologies, there's a reason why that happened.
Yeah.
So that's where class action lawsuits came about.
Yeah, that's incredible. So again, though, before we continue on to the next phase, so let's just outline kind of roughly the different products, if you would, for those that don't know a lot about Dynamic and what you guys offer.
Yeah, I'll let Vanna White handle that one.
Yeah, she has everything prepared. I hope you guys are watching this on YouTube because it'll make it far more entertaining with Michelle and all the work she did to get ready.
I'm so excited because, yes, basically, Bob, it's super easy. It's super simple. There are 3 phases of contamination in every home, okay? Particles and dust. I think we would all agree every home has particles and dust, right?
Yes.
So here's our 1-inch air cleaner. This is phenomenal. This goes right into the 1-inch filter slot. It's super easy. So no ductwork modification. So that's great for our contractors, right?
Big time.
24-volt electronic air cleaner. Here's the media. It's not a filter. A filter, Bob, only collects 2 to 4% of the particles. That's an F. I don't care what school you went to, that's an F. Okay?
That's right.
Yeah.
Ours collects 97% of the particles smaller than a human hair.
That's incredible.
Okay?
Yeah.
That too is an A, no matter what school you went to. Okay?
That's true. No curves required. Yeah.
Okay? So this takes care of contaminant number 1, and I love it. This can be installed in 15 minutes or less. It makes the contractor a great revenue. It protects the unit for the homeowner, right? The heating and air conditioning system for the homeowner. And it helps everybody in the home breathe cleaner air, which is huge, you guys. I have a Mastiff, and it looks like my English Mastiff is living in it when I change that. It's disgusting.
Oh, boy. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the key to that too, Bob, is that like Michelle was mentioning, the best filter in the world can only collect 2 to 4% of what's in the air.
Yeah.
But 97% is what gets through your lungs and causes asthma and allergies and other kinds of challenges. So when we talk into air quality, we have to talk about system protection. We want that thing running at peak efficiency.
Right.
But we also want to protect your health. So we don't draw the line at just equipment. We do both with our products.
That's incredible.
Go ahead, Vanna.
Yeah.
All right. So back to the Center for Disease Control pie chart, the orange and the red, right, are germs. I think we can agree that every house has germs no matter how much we clean, right?
Sure.
Sad, but true. And then the red part there is chemical gases and odors. So sadly, every home has that too.
Oh, yeah.
I just recently got these blinds here because I'm in Florida and the sun shines in, right? Well, they're made of plastics. So all day for like 3 days after I got them installed, they were off gassing this horrible odor. Yeah. And I have this puppy in my house. So imagine if I didn't.
Right. And homes are tighter now too, right? Because they're in, so that off gas that sticks around even longer.
It does, Bob. That's exactly right. So here's our UV light. Check this out. This bad boy is heavy, okay? But here's our germicidal light. So this one is killing the germs, bacteria, and viruses, and it's a double light. If you look at it, there's 2 lights. So that's pretty cool. And then this one takes care of the odors, which I love. I have mine wide open because, again, I have that dog and 2 teenagers. So you can imagine, right? But here's what I love, Bob, is this is adjustable. Check this out. Right? So that is for the homeowner that might say, hey, I'm smelling something. I don't know what it is, or if they burned broccoli, because that happens.
Sure.
Right? You can turn that up or down depending, or if you cook fish. Yeah, exactly.
Or teenagers frozen pizzas, burn frozen pizzas. Sure.
Popcorn, right?
Yeah.
So I really, really love our product line. It's just super easy. It's an air cleaner and a UV light, and you can really help every single homeowner that you come into contact with. We're very passionate about these products, and we just want a little time to share it with your contractors.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's great. That's great. Well,
Well,
thank you
the
for
other
doing
thing, the other thing, Bob, real quick is
Yeah.
Michelle doesn't like when I get into really technical geeky stuff. She usually falls asleep or turns the camera off. But just so the guys know, the 1-inch, it's called polarized media. It basically has opposite charge that the particles do, and we plate it to the cell. We don't put the dust and dirt somewhere else. We physically remove it out of the air. And the small guy she's talking about is 97% of that. You know, she mentioned her dog being able to see the fur inside the filter, but it's also collecting all this invisible stuff.
Right.
And the same thing with the UV. There's tons of UV out there.
Right.
But it has to have the right amount of microwatts, it's called, in order for it to function correctly. It's not for this call. I mean, it would literally on UV and all those 3 phases of contamination, we have an hour session on each one of them.
Wow.
Just so the guys know, we delve into it really deeply with the technicians. So number one, they believe in the product. Secondly, they're confident on how to talk to the homeowner about it. And thirdly, they do it every time and every call, and we teach them how to do that as well. And then the other UV light does the odors. So we cover how all that works in detail on the technical end.
Right, because they got to believe in it. They have to believe in it to want to talk about it, which is great. And it leads beautifully into process, which was the second one you'd mentioned. Product, we covered process. Let's shift to process and dig in a bit more. At CertainPath, we talk about process all the time. We have processes for everything for businesses. I mean, you have to have processes to grow and be profitable. And obviously, you have a very detailed process for selling IAQ and educating people in IAQ. What does your IAQ process look like in educating technicians? Let's start with that audience first.
Okay.
I think I'll go through real quick through the process, and Michelle, you can go through the details on how we train. But like I mentioned early on in the podcast, we have to get the technicians to believe, and we have to make them understand that it's not the money. It's not their money what this stuff is priced at. We don't know what people are willing to spend on anything, whether it's cars or watches or guns. And I'm a drummer. I would spend $10,000 on a set of drums where someone else would think I'm crazy.
Right.
But someone pays $10,000 for a watch, I think they're crazy. So we have to get them to understand it's not their decision what the people are going to spend their money on. Secondly, they need to understand what the dirt, dust, and debris that's going through that air handler, how it's affecting the equipment. So this is really not selling something as much as it is fixing something. So we teach them don't sell an IAQ product, fix the problem.
Right.
No different than a capacitor that has a bad reading. I ask techs this all the time. So you guys say you're not a salesman. Who's replaced a capacitor this week? Every single hand comes up.
Sure.
Right. So was it free? Well, no. Well, how much was it? $230, $250, $300, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
So you actually exchanged money for a product and a service.
Right.
Yeah. Well, then you just sold something. Right. And I usually ask them, how many of you guys are married here? And several hands come up. You got some good-looking girl to marry your ugly mug. You're a sales guy. It's all about communication, but they're doing it every day already anyway. They don't even know it.
Sure.
They just feel like, gosh, I got to talk about the gigawatts and everything else. Well, no, you got to understand how to communicate this in layman's terms.
Right.
And Michelle, if you can kind of go through the process of how we start with the sales, not the sales, but the training, and then how we end up, or we never end actually.
Yeah, right. Which is, we'll get to that later, but that's a good point. Let's talk about your onboarding a little bit more in depth, Michelle. You guys actually have a certification process that you kind of ask the technicians to go through before maybe one of your reps show up at the office. Can you kind of talk about what that certification process is a little bit more in depth?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. So it's on our training website, which is dynamicaqstraining.com. Once they complete those 18 modules on our indoor air quality certification curriculum, and we abbreviate everything, and I'm really not a big fan of acronyms because people, a lot of times when they're in heating and air, they don't even know what IAQ means.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it means indoor air quality, and I hate making people not feel comfortable, right? But
Yeah.
in indoor air quality, there is a certification. And so the certificate looks like this, right, with their name on it, Bob. So every
Right.
single person in the company gets their own. We also have these little patches that says they're indoor air quality trained and certified
Very
that
nice.
anybody can get either for their uniform or they
Yeah.
can put it in the lanyard, right,
Right,
that way.
right.
So we do like the techs to all have gone through that prior
Yeah.
to even their training with John McNutt, because that gives them enough background to where they'll pay attention and have questions for John.
Right. That's
So
great.
that's part of our process too. But the goal is we train every single person in the company for the indoor air quality culture.
Yeah. And to me, by going through so in depth what the products do, it gets buy-in, right? You're not just going in and giving a sales pitch on, hey, here's how you make a lot of money. Here's how the company makes a lot of money. And then don't talk about how it benefits the customer, right? You guys start with, here's how the technology benefits the customer. I think that's what's incredible. And Steve, actually, you mentioned earlier, you at least have kind of hinted towards it, this idea of fix it or fix it. It's a philosophy you guys believe in. How do you, what kind of share with everyone what that means and how you communicate that to the techs to get them to buy even further?
Well, what it actually means is it's kind of what I alluded to earlier, like you said, is technicians don't want to sell, but they join the company and they love to fix things. They love to do what's right for the homeowner.
Right.
So when we teach them, if they see during the either maintenance or service call, and there's a transition, we teach them, and you guys do as well, how to meet and greet at the front door and the transition from the thermostat to the piece of equipment. Once they get to the piece of equipment, every time on every call, there's an opportunity to open that thing up and look at the dirt, dust, and debris in there. If they have a dollar throwaway filter, they're going to have dirt in there.
Yeah.
So
oh, yes.
When you see that happening, we always give the example of a pitted contactor, a bad capacitor. What would you guys do if you see that? Well, we tell the homeowner, and then we give them the option to change it. Or fix it now, or do you want us to fix it on July 4th when you have a picnic over here and your unit goes out?
Sure.
Let's be proactive. So fix it or fix it means, all right, I got a bad capacitor, right? Mrs. Jones, I can fix it, or do you want me to fix it? Meaning, I can replace the capacitor, but why did the capacitor go bad? Right. Why did the blower motor go bad? Why is the condensing unit going bad? It's 90% of the time, it's because of the dirt, dust, and debris built up in the system. Yeah. The blower motor, blower wheel gets out of whack. The coil gets, EPA says 1/20th of an inch buildup on a coil reduces the coil output by 21%. So that's the thickness of a business card. Yeah. And I always ask the techs, have you ever seen that much dirt, dust, and debris in the system? And they all go, oh my God, it looks like it's sometimes a dead animal pelt we got to peel off. So, they've seen a lot worse than that. And so when someone's complaining about their utility cost or the breakdowns, the unnecessary breakdowns that they're going through every day, you can fix it, or I can fix it, meaning I can clean the blower wheel, I can get it at factory fresh conditions, but to really fix it, we got to stop that from happening in the future. Right. That's where indoor air quality comes in. Yeah. So it's not about a sales process as much as it is fix it or fix it. Fix it meaning I can do something today, I can put a Band-Aid on it, I can replace the parts, or do you really want me to fix it? And what that means to the homeowners, well, what do you mean by that? Well, the reason that went bad is because of this. If I replace that and this is still here, we're still gonna have the same problem next time I come out here. Yeah. That's fixed. That's fix it or fix it.
And it speaks to technicians' mindset. I love that. I love that. Collect myself because I wanted to remember because it begins really with a phone call that comes into the office, right? And a lot of people don't think about that. So it starts there and it goes throughout that service call experience. So can you kind of mention what are the different touch points a technician or a company can mention IAQ to a homeowner?
You're hitting a great point, Bob. It starts with the call taker. You know, there's ways of them to get excited about product. We have call takers that actually sell IAQ packages over the phone.
Right.
You know, and so it starts with them getting educated, them getting excited, them having it in their own home and having an experience with it themselves. And then they can talk excitedly about it when they're talking to the homeowner on a call. So, Michelle, I'm going to have you address that first on the call taker end, and then I'll take it from the service tech end.
Perfect.
Absolutely. So, Bob, when I joined Dynamic officially, it was one of those pieces that I thought was a miss because I obviously Hogan Construction, so I've been in the trades for a long time, right?
Sure.
And the people in the front of the office, when we're talking to homeowners, that's a completely different conversation than the tech at the house, right? Or the salesperson at the house.
Yeah.
You hear about their family, Bob. You hear about their grandkids. You hear about the dog. You hear about everything that's going on in their world.
Yeah.
And so you start to pick up things, right? If someone's been sick, someone's been in the hospital, so, you know, they've got dogs or cats, you pick up on things and go, oh gosh, Mrs. Jones, you know, you really should look at our air cleaner. If you have those grandkids over all the time, that might really help you.
Yeah.
Right. And then she's going to say, well, why? What are you talking about? Right. And if the call taker has that education and that knowledge, and it's very powerful. And the other, Bob, that we didn't talk about, but I want to, is once we do our training, so whether it's our onboarding training or John does a training or our trainers come on site, because we want everybody in the company to truly believe in the product, after the training, they get 1 week. If they get a homeowner happily involved with our air cleaner and UV light, we will give them an air cleaner and UV light for their home.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a nice perk.
And that's everyone. So that's the call taker, right? That's the tech, that's the installer, that's the salesperson, because they really have to have it and experience it, because you don't go anywhere, Bob, without saying, like if you go out to dinner, hey, what do you think is the best meal served here? You always ask.
Sure.
Because you want that.
Yeah.
Right. So if the tech then comes to the home, or the call taker's talking to the homeowner and they don't have our product in their home, how does that come across?
Right, for sure. Oh yeah, you've got to have that credibility. But you actually have a whole training for, just to get back, I wanted to emphasize this, for the call center and how to talk about it. You know, so it's not like, hey, you need to bring this up. It's like you have a process for that as well.
We have a 3-pronged process for that. Right? It's the same. We go back to 3 all the time. We have a recorded training that's ready to go. They can watch it. Carrie does a live training like this. Once Carrie's done, I do the 3rd one. So there is a process for the office staff to get trained as well, followed by the techs, the installers, and the salespeople. Beautiful. And John McNutt usually starts off with that training to give them the technical background, and then their on-site trainer takes it for how to communicate that technology to the homeowner in layman's terms, so that my eyes don't close and I don't understand the
Fall asleep standing. Yeah, yes. I understand. Yes. Now, Steve, I wanted to throw back to you. So Michelle talked about the first touch point. So the customer I've talked about, I have the dogs or I have asthma or whatever. So that's where the call taker can mention it then. What are the other touch points in the home where, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, but maybe kind of just go through all of them where a technician can.
Yeah, I let me go through what you shouldn't do first, because when we do technical training, I'm an IAQ geek. Like I said, it drives Michelle nuts. But techs love it. All of my trainers in the field, they're very well knowledgeable. They're experts in indoor air quality and products. So the techs want to know about the nanometers and the wavelengths and voltages and the microwatts and polarized media, and they really get into it.
Yeah.
And the challenge that we have is the second part of training is, okay, everything we taught you is really cool. You really need to know it so you believe in the product and have confidence in the product. You all agree that you believe in the product, and you can now go talk to the homeowner and I'll say yes. Now, if we left it at that, here's what happens. They get a no heat call in Chicago, and it's 25 degrees below zero out. And they knock on the door, and they, before they even kick the snow off their boots, They say, hey, Mrs. Jones, I got a UV light for $1,800. You want to buy one? They're excited. They want to talk about it, but
Yeah.
that's the wrong time. And Mrs. Jones is going to look at him and say, aren't you going to fix my darn furnace? Isn't that what you're here for? So we teach them, do what you came there for first, whether it's a maintenance or a service, a diagnostic, whatever you're doing, make sure that happens. You know, and then the right time to do it is during the diagnostic or the maintenance stage when you're physically looking at the piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And then you have the homeowner, because you've asked the question at the thermostat if you could share anything with them, and they said yes, right? And say, hey, Mrs. Jones, remember when I asked you at the thermostat if I found anything that affects the performance of your equipment or health of your family, you wanted me to share that with you? And they say yes. Well, here, let me show you something. This dirt, dust, and debris in the system is affecting the performance of your equipment. That's why your capacitor is bad or whatever the challenge is, right?
Yeah.
And it also, the same stuff we're looking at gets in the air and it could affect someone's health. I'm wondering who in your house suffers from asthma and allergies. That's when you ask the question.
Yeah.
A lot of technicians want to ask that question at the thermostat or up front during the meet and greet. Well, in the homeowner's mind then is like, what are you, a doctor, or where'd that come from? You know, what even gave you the right to ask that question?
Of course.
What gives you the right is you're seeing evidence.
Yeah.
Then you can ask the question.
That's
the other bad time, and I'll give you another example. I have, this is going back years ago, at a contract says, I don't know what's going on. We present indoor air quality in every single call. I said, your sales are horrible. By accident, you got to sell something. Explain to me your process.
Yeah.
I said, well, after each call, at the bottom of the invoice, we put train clean effects, $2,400 or whatever the product is.
Yep.
That's all it is. And I said, well, if I'm a homeowner and you just charge me $800 for a service call and you want to charge me another $2,000 or $3,000 for something else,
yeah,
what is it something else? What's it going to do for me? Why is it $2,400? You know, it's just a line item. Right. So, you know, you can't do that either. So beginning of the call is not a good idea. At the end of the call, while you're walking out the door, is not a good idea.
Right.
During the diagnostic and maintenance stage, when you're actually physically seeing evidence of a problem, is when you present.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Oh, Michelle, were you going to have something you wanted to add?
That is especially important for females in the home, Bob, because we're very visual. So that technician, it's important, it's imperative, and it's how we train. They have to show us what you're looking at. We don't know that the heating and air system is even inside and outside. We have no clue, okay?
Right.
We just know that we want it to be cool when it's hot outside and we want it to be warm when it's cold outside.
Sure, sure.
So you have to show us that dirt. You have to show us that the coil is dirty. We don't even know that we're looking at a coil. So the technicians have got to explain to us what we're looking at, and we have to see that dirt. Once we see it, we understand it, and we don't want it there.
Right. How often, or maybe, I don't know if you train this, but I'm intrigued, do you bring in your products or tell techs to bring in the products and go, see what we offer versus here's that cheap filter you had from Home Depot. Look at what we can, is that part, or just leave it in the home and then go do something else? Do you guys ever talk about that, or do you know people that do that?
We do it a couple different ways. We like to get it in their hands. We'll take, Michelle just kind of demonstrate taking the regular, take the other filter, Michelle.
Yeah.
And you hold it up, and one of the things we train is, well, this is a pretty good filter where you get, and while you're talking about, you're doing that.
Yeah.
Now, where'd you get this one? Well, I get it at Home Depot. Well, how much did that cost you? Well, they're like, $20 a piece or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you get, okay, is there any reason why you wouldn't want a better filter than that one? Because we're looking at dirt, dust, and debris. That's a simple question to get into indoor air quality before you get into technology.
Yeah, that's great.
People will say, almost 100% of the time, it's never 100%, but 90-some% of the time, yeah, I'd look at a better one.
Sure.
But about 80% of the time, they're going to say, but what does it cost?
Right.
And then we teach them how to present the pricing and all that.
Sure.
So when we're looking at that type of technology and explanation, it has to be in layman's terms. It has to be in colloquial language that they understand.
Right.
And then we have to physically show them the evidence. So it's not brain surgery as much as it is a process and having them follow it every time and every call.
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
Both of our products, I don't think we mentioned this, but our air cleaner has a lifetime warranty on the power head, and our UV light has a lifetime warranty on the ballast.
Right.
So that's pretty hard to come by today. So that's a very good value proposition for the homeowner.
Oh,
And
big time.
usually what we tell them to say is, Bob, this is the last air cleaner and UV light you'll ever have to buy for your home as long as you're living in this home.
Right. That's powerful. That's very
That is
powerful.
powerful. And then the
Absolutely.
contractor gets the residual revenue or the mailbox money, Bob, off the
Yeah.
media and off of the bulbs.
Oh,
And by
there
the
you
way,
go.
our bulbs have 3-year lamp life on the bulb, which is unheard of in the industry.
That's incredible.
Oh, by the way, Bob, also there's a lot of clone stuff online that might say it's dynamic or dynamic equal or looks like it.
Yeah.
And it's a buyer beware thing. Number one, if they're not buying that media that she's holding up right there now, it says LPD on it and has a carbon grid in there, it voids the warranty. The lifetime warranty is not honored anymore.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff on the market that something in the middle there has to be a middle section. We use carbon that has to charge off that probe. If you put polyfilm in there or something, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And it could cause damage to the equipment or to the air cleaner.
Yeah.
So that's why when any of our lamps or any of our products, that's how we protect the client, the homeowner, the end user, and we also protect the contractor by allowing him to resell the genuine product.
That's great. That's good insight. I'm glad you guys mentioned that. I want to circle back to something. Talking about practice, we've gone over onboarding, right? How we get the technicians excited, right? How do we get them certified? And so all of a sudden, and then how to present, initially, and it gets everyone excited for like a quarter, and everyone sells everything for like a quarter, and then all of a sudden summer comes and they're running crazy, and IAQ sales dip. So the way to combat that is by training regularly, right? So how often do you guys recommend the contractors should be talking to their team about your IAQ products, and just to keep that on top of their mind as they're going into homes?
Well, what we've found is usually a once a quarter live visit is important.
Okay.
But like you said, then we get this going on, They get busy, they do something else. So in order to support that, while we're not there, we have the recorded modules. And there's 85 of them. 18 of those are certification modules. The other ones are all kinds of different things. And we do have one about the difference between talking to a woman and a man, or with a couple is there, who you should be paying more attention to. Just little things that they need to be aware of. It's not just IAQ technology and gigawatts. It's a lot of, matter of fact, I'd say 80% of our stuff has nothing to do with technology.
Right.
It has to do with presentation, how to promote it, when to promote it, just like we're talking about.
Right.
The other thing is we go through techs. Johnny Park, or pick somebody, one of our reps, was just there last week, and he gets a call. Hey, I just got 3 new techs. Can you come out and train? I'm not going to be there for another 2 months. I'm booked.
Sure.
So, well, let's get them certified. Let's get them also, give them a week or 2 to do that. Let's get John McNutt online, and we'll do the 3 core modules. And then when I come out here, then they're up to speed with the other techs, and then we can do our regular training.
Yeah.
So I had this question asked me it was actually an SGI member when you were SGI. And he said, I can't mention the competition, but XYZ company was in here and they did a training. And I said, how'd that training go? How long was it? And he says, about a half hour. And I said, I bet it was a B&B training, right? He goes, well, what's that? They brought in bagels and balloons, right? And he goes, well, they brought stuff in. Yeah. I go, well, then he goes, well, how long's your training? I said, well, it never ends.
Yeah.
We're going to need hour increments forever. And even if it's the guys that have heard the training 20 different times, they always pick something up.
Sure.
But it's not the same training every time. Right. We sit with the management team. What do you need more on? Well, my guys need more technical. They do technical training. They need more communication. My CSRs aren't doing the right things on a call like Michelle and Carrie trained them on. So it just never ends. We just keep going and going, and there's enough modules, 85 of them. Do one a week.
Yeah.
How many weeks are in a year? 52. Yeah. So that's almost 2 years worth of stuff.
For sure.
And we're always adding to that as well.
Right. And your trainers will do ride-alongs too. I wanted to bring that point out. I mean, how valuable are those ride-alongs?
They're super valuable, but there's a little caveat to that.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. I was out out west, and that guy said, "Hey, can you do a ride along after training?" And I said, "Sure, I'll do a ride along with you." So we get there, we get our first call, and it's a perfect opportunity. It's a customer they knew already. It was a part that they had to order, so it was a second call. They already knew what they were going to do.
Sure.
We opened up the system, and it is filthy. And I'm
Mm.
looking at the tech, and I said, kind of not notching with my elbow, and I said,
Yeah.
when the guy comes down, we need to show him this. So we showed it to him, and he says, "Yeah, okay." And then I'm like, "I guess I got to take this over. Is there any reason why you wouldn't want a better filter to stop this from happening in the future?" Yeah, I like to look at a better filter. So I look at the tech, and I said, "Oh," he goes, "How much does it cost?" And I
Yeah.
said, "Look at the tech. Why don't you get one out of the truck, and we can show it to him? We don't carry them on the truck." Well, at least show him a piece of literature. I don't have any literature with me. Well, at
Yeah.
least go on your software and pick out the price. Well, it's not on the software.
Yeah.
After that call, I got back in the truck. He goes, "Oh, we got another call at 123 ABC Street." I said, "No, our next call is to the office. You're dropping me off."
Yeah.
I sat down with the manager. I said, "Do not send my reps on a call without them being prepared with literature, with product, with education, with how to present, even just opening the door for the homeowner."
Right.
And you better have, especially if you're using some fancy type of software that's out there now,
Oh yeah.
you hit the button, you got to be able to show it to them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that's the caveat. Happy to do them, but please be prepared, because if they're not prepared, we're just not going to go on other calls until they are prepared.
Sure. Well, training doesn't matter if there's not a process being followed, right? That's why you talk about those three things. You've got to have a process, and you have to follow it. I mean, so it doesn't matter if you went out there and you showed them initially and you onboarded them, if they go, "Oh, that's great," and then let it all go. What's the point, of doing those additional ride-alongs? So no, that's a great point, Steve. And the process, it works. It works. You guys have seen it. Kind of in wrapping up, I had a few final questions, things that maybe we didn't touch on. But I wanted to be sure to point out, we've talked primarily about technicians selling this stuff, and I think you mentioned to me earlier in a previous call that I think 70% of your sales should be coming from your techs, not the salespeople just packaging them with new systems. And if those of you watching or listening, if your sales team is the one doing the bulk of the selling, you've got a problem, but an opportunity. And Steve, you mentioned somebody, I don't want their name being mentioned, but they are a huge contractor in the Texas area that I've known. We both have known, all of us have known for many years, that you went and visited. And you went, "Oh my gosh, all your IQ sales are through your salespeople."
Well, we were excited because they were buying the competition. They switched to our product line. They're buying $1 million a year of this other product from a wholesaler.
Yeah.
They switched to our line. So we're all excited about $1 million worth of revenue on our end, and then what we could help them with on their end, because we know they haven't been trained. What we found out during our first meeting with them is out of that $1 million, 95% of it was sold on packages on their replacement calls.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't being sold. It was just added to packages.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I'm asking the service manager happened to be in the meeting along with the owner and the GM. And I'm like, "Well, so what do you do in the service end?" "Well, they can sell it if they want to." I'm like, "You know what? Why don't you keep your other competitor? They can have the replacement stuff."
Yeah.
Facetiously. I mean, I want that business.
Sure.
But give me your service guys. Give me your maintenance guys.
Yeah.
That's where they're seeing, the sales guy might see 2 people a day.
Right.
Most technicians see 4 to 5 people a day.
Right.
I mean, and you probably have 3 to 4 times more techs than you do sales guys.
Right.
If you do your numbers right. The opportunity, they'd see so many more people throughout the day and the week and the year. If you do your numbers, there's much more opportunity with a trained technician than there is with a sales guy. Now, I'm not saying take it out of your packages. Don't sell it with replacements.
Oh, no.
Super important to have that, but you're going to sell more. The guys that really have a good process and a culture, literally 70% of their IQ sold through maintenance and service technicians.
Yeah. No, and that's why I highlighted those numbers when we first started. I wanted them to hear because like you said, the opportunities are there. There's 4 calls a day at least on the service side, so you're always in front of people talking about it. One other thing I want to talk about, we've talked about training, right? And how all the products benefit the homeowner and they can benefit the company in terms of sales. But for it to work, the tech has to win as well. And again, I alluded that they could make a big chunk by selling these products. Can you kind of share with everyone what you recommend a technician or salesperson, how should they be spiffed on IAQ products?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bob. They
Yeah.
absolutely should be given at least a 10% spiff.
Yeah.
So for example, on our indoor air quality IAQ 3000 package, which is this one, which is our air cleaner and our UV light, right? That retails for $2,200. We want that technician to make $200 each time they sell it.
Absolutely. I mean, it just makes them, they don't forget about it that way, right? I mean, it makes sense.
They sell one a week, Bob, and that is game changer. That's $800 a month to that technician. That's a house payment. That's an awesome car payment, right?
Yes.
I mean, come on, that is just game changing money for anyone.
Yep. And again, you're equipping them with the tools to be able to communicate it effectively in a manner that the homeowner sees how they benefit, right? It's not like we're just slamming product. You guys are doing it the right way. So, and for them to be able to win, it's so great. Yeah, you got to.
We also have this video book, Bob.
There you go.
Says, is the air in your home making you sick? These are for technicians. I know that none of your contractors employ any technicians that, you know, they talk all the time. They never shut up. We don't employ any fix-it guys. But if you do, employ fix-it guys that don't like to talk to the homeowner, after they get their indoor air quality certification, Bob, you know, their certificate, we will send them a free video book. So we will get them so that they can then show the homeowner this.
Oh, wow.
When they're doing their maintenance and service, they can say, Michelle, while I'm here working on your maintenance, I'm going to be inside and outside of your house. If you wouldn't mind checking this video book out and watch one of the videos, I'll answer any questions for you when I'm finished.
I didn't realize you guys offered it. That's incredible. That's nice. And you're right, for the fix-it guy, and or like say it's the summer and you're just so busy that you've got, you know, maybe the guys aren't the strongest communicators filling in on the service. That helps a lot. That's incredible. That's a great tool.
And they get it free if they do the certification.
That's wonderful. Great. Well, guys, hey, just again, wrapping up, really appreciate your time. Do you have any kind of final words or insight that you want to share that maybe I didn't bring up or touch on?
Well, Bob, I think you are super thorough, and I appreciate you having us. The only thing that I would add is when you look at the technician side of it again, they're doing an average of 20 calls a week. I had a technician once say to me, I sell IAQ on 80% of the calls that I presented to people. And I said, well, how do you decide who you're going to present it to? Well, I can tell if they have enough money. I can tell if they have. I said, really? So once again, you're a financial advisor. You can tell. You do not know what people. It's not your job to spend their money. Right. It's not our job to convince people of anything. It's our job to inform them. Yeah. We need to inform them what the dirt, dust, and debris is doing in the system. That they're overpaying the utility company. That it's causing damage. That we can fix it. We can fix it, or we can fix it. Right. If they did that every single time, 20 calls. If a bad technician, and I don't mean bad in a bad person, but one that doesn't do this very well, he's going to sell 1 out of 20. Yeah. The good ones that communicate correctly, they're going to sell 5 out of 20. Yeah. So, but if you do what the other technicians said, and you pick and choose who they are, you're going to, you're just not going to sell as many because you just narrowed your market down. Yeah. So every time and every call. That's great. Last thought, I guess. Yeah. Very good. Michelle, anything?
I just have 3 quick things. So every call, every time, every day. When should indoor air quality be offered? Every call, every time, every day. Okay, that's that. And then we train in 3 ways. Ooh, lots of O's. Okay, online recorded, online live, and on-site training, right? That's important. And then lastly, Bob, I just wanted to tell you, I think you know my story, but I have 2 children. One suffers severely. He's on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum. And he struggles with fine motor skills still to this day, and he's 22. So he struggles to blow his nose and just do anything with his fingers. And so when he was 7, he suffered severely with nosebleeds. And Steve Mores, because we worked together, said, get an air cleaner and a UV light for your home. And I thought he was crazy, Bob. I was like, what? You know, I'm like, for what? And he said, well, I just thought it might help Brexton, you know, because he's constantly sick. He has sinus infections, but recently he had been having severe nosebleeds.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, whatever, I have nothing to lose. So Bob, we put the air cleaner and UV light in our home, and within 1 week, what do you think happened to Brexton?
All cleared up.
No more nosebleeds. Week 2, Bob, his voice sounded different to me.
Wow.
And I believe that's because it's the first time in 7 years of that poor boy's life, he finally could breathe with ease.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the products
going.
were very impactful for me and for Brexton. So I'm very passionate about them, and I want everyone to know, because anybody that has children, I get concerned. I want them to have the products in their house. Anyone that has pets, I get concerned. I want them to have the products in their house.
Yeah.
We just want to help people and do the right thing. So that's my closing parting comment.
No, it's the stories like that. All this that we talked about earlier, that's all great. But then when you finally put a story to it with people and how it impacts their lives, it really kind of just goes, okay, this is something that we really should make an effort to communicate with people, because so many still don't know it exists. So, and that's why I wanted you guys on here to talk to our audience that can change that. So again, Steve and Michelle, thank you so much for all your time. I really, really appreciate you being on.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having us. You did a great job, by the way.
Have a great day. Oh, I don't know about that, but I'll take it. Thank you. That's Steve Mores and Michelle Hogan of Dynamic Indoor Air Quality Solutions. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. If so, please like and subscribe on YouTube. If we're on your favorite podcast player, please leave us a 5-star review. The 2 seconds you take to leave a review will help other success-minded contractors like you find us and hopefully get a little bit better, which elevates our entire industry. And please join me for future episodes. This has been The Successful Contractor, powered by CertainPath.
Support for this podcast comes from Angie. Angie is one of the largest home services marketplaces that connects qualified service professionals to project-ready homeowners. With over 25 years of experience and a network of more than 250,000 pros, we've helped more than 150 million people with their home needs. For service professionals, we are the source for everything from new customers and revenue streams to reviews, payments, and perks. With homeowners today investing more than ever, countless projects need a pro to take them on. We make the connection. Reach more homeowners with Angie. Shuby. Shuby makes it easy to take your customer service to the next level. Show your clients you care with their full line of extra large, extra durable products made specifically to protect their home or business. Shuby products were made by service professionals for service professionals. None of those cheap, thin shoe covers that tear on the job. Their booties are made tough. They have surface protection products for every floor type to make sure you don't leave behind scuffs or scrapes. And don't forget their coveralls, made with an extra long torso for ease of motion while keeping your uniform clean all day. Let Shuby prevent the hassle of cleanup by preventing the mess in the first place. Put your best foot forward with Shuby today. Visit their website at www.shuby.com or give them a call today and mention coupon code to receive 10% off your next order. The Successful Contractor Podcast is part of the CertainPath family. CertainPath builds successful home service businesses and has for 23 years. We do it by providing contractors with a proven path to success, professional coaching, software solutions, and a member community of over 1,000 contractors just like you. Doubling your sales with a 20% net profit and an inspiring company culture is all possible. Let us show you the way. With CertainPath, success is made certain. Visit www.mycertainpath.com for more information.